Welcome to the Book Talks, where stories aren't just read, they're understood. Today, the book under discussion is Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami.
And this one is, well, it's just an incredibly wild ride.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine waking up in the bushes, like hundreds of miles away from a gruesome murder scene. You have blood on your shirt, and you realize that the killer might actually be your own subconscious mind.
Right, which is just a terrifying concept to even try and wrap your head around.
It really is. So today we are diving into a collection of source excerpts from this truly mesmerizing narrative. Our mission is to guide you through a surreal labyrinth of, runaway teenagers, classified military reports, and these bizarre metaphysical storms.
Yeah, and we're going to extract some incredibly profound insights about how we confront the destinies we desperately try to escape.
Exactly, because we have this fascinating stack of excerpts to go through. We are basically tracking a 15-year-old boy who names himself Kafka alongside these very strange historical accounts from 1944.
And to really grasp what connects these two completely different timelines, we have to start with the core metaphor of this whole deep dive, which is the sandstorm.
Right. The sandstorm sets the stage for absolutely everything here. So the protagonist has this alter ego, this tough, pragmatic voice in his head called the boy named Crow.
And Crow tells him that fate is basically like a small sandstorm that just keeps changing directions to chase you.
Yeah, you turn left, the storm adjusts left, you turn right, and it follows you. You literally cannot outrun it.
Because, as Crow explains, this storm isn't something that blew in from some distant desert. The storm is you.
It's you. It's completely internal.
Exactly. It is something entirely internal. So the only thing you can really do is just give into it.
Yeah.
You have to step right inside the storm, close your eyes, plug your ears to keep the fine white sand out, and just walk through it.
Wow, just step by step. That is such a terrifying image, though, right? Stepping into a storm made of your own fate.
It's daunting. But that's exactly what Kafka's doing as he prepares to run away on his 15th birthday.
And just look at the sheer physical reality of his preparation. I mean, he's spent years obsessively bulking up his body at the gym so he can pass for 17.
Yeah, he is building this massive emotional wall, too. He actually describes looking in the mirror to make sure his eyes are as cold as a lizard's.
A lizard's eyes. He just wants to be the toughest 15-year-old on the planet.
Which is, such a recognizable tragic defense mechanism. He thinks he can basically outmuscle his own vulnerability.
Right. And we see that same meticulous, guarded nature in the artifacts he chooses for his escape. He packs with, surgical precision.
He does. He takes a deer-skinning knife with a heavy 5-inch blade, a really sturdy flashlight, and this torn photograph.
The photograph is such a striking detail to me. It's an old picture of him and his older sister at the beach when they were little.
But it's torn right down the middle, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
So his sister's smile is neatly cut in half in shadow, half in light. It feels very much like a Greek tragedy mask representing hope and despair.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
But honestly, what he purposely leaves behind is just as telling. He looks at his father's flashy, expensive Rolex, but he leaves it in the drawer.
Right. He chooses to wear his own cheap plastic Casio watch instead.
Why do you think he does that?
Well, because the Rolex represents his father's wealth, his father's world, and ultimately his father's control over him.
So by choosing the cheap Casio, Kafka is attempting to sever that generational tie.
Exactly. He is essentially saying, I am operating on my own time now, not my father's.
But wait, let's look at what he's actually doing here. He's building muscle, practicing a lizard stare, packing a heavy knife, putting on a new watch.
Yeah.
It feels like he's putting on a raincoat to protect himself against a psychological flood. You can build all the physical muscle you want, but how does that protect you from what he calls the dark, omnipresent pool of water inside his own mind?
Well, it doesn't. And that is the central illusion of his escape, really. He believes in this geographical cure.
The idea that if you just move far enough away, you leave your problems behind?
Right. But as we see in the source material, the mind is not bound by geography. The trauma you are running from is basically sitting in the passenger seat with you.
And he realizes this almost immediately, doesn't he? He gets on a night bus heading south to Shikoku, and he meets this quirky 15-year-old girl named Sakura.
And she's completely disarming. She even makes him eat her strawberry jam sandwich because she hates them.
Which is funny because it completely forces him out of his tough guy shell for a minute.
It's a very grounding human moment. But even in this mundane interaction, the text drops a philosophical anchor.
Right. They start talking about this proverb. Sakura and Kafka discuss how chance encounters are actually the result of karma.
Yeah, Sakura translates this into a working philosophy, the idea that absolutely nothing is a coincidence.
Everything is connected.
Exactly. Every small interaction, every person you sit next to on a bus, it is all fated by previous lives.
So even as he's physically running away from his fate, he's being told that every step he takes is already predetermined.
Right. But here is the fascinating thing about trying to escape your own mind. Sometimes when a situation becomes unbearable, the mind actually manages to escape the body.
Yes, and this is where the sources suddenly pivot to give us this documented historical precedent for that.
The narrative shifts drastically to the 1944 Rice Bowl Hill incident.
Yeah.
We are suddenly reading classified U.S. Army intelligence reports from 1946.
Detailing this mass medical anomaly in Yamanashi Prefecture during World War II, it honestly reads exactly like a sci-fi thriller.
It really does. We get the testimony of Setsuko Okamochi, this young school teacher.
Right, it's November 1944. She takes 16 fourth graders up Rice Bowl Hill to pick mushrooms. It's a beautiful, quiet day.
And then they see a brilliant silver flash in the sky. She assumes it's a B-29 bomber, though military records later confirmed there were 0 planes in the area.
None at all. And then less than 10 minutes later, all 16 children suddenly collapse in the woods.
They just drop to the ground, entirely unconscious. The local doctor, Dr. Nakazawa, is brought in, and his medical testimony is completely baffling.
He rules out food poisoning, right?
He rules out food poisoning, he rules out poison gas. The children are entirely limp, like rag dolls.
But they're alive.
Oh yeah, but their pulses have dropped to around 50 beats per minute, and their body temperatures are down to 96 degrees.
But the most unsettling detail is what their eyes are doing. Their eyes are wide open, but completely unreactive to light.
And they are moving slowly from side to side, tracking something invisible, like a searchlight.
Yeah, Dr. Nakazawa specifically notes they weren't just staring blankly, they were intensely observing something that the adults in the room simply could not see.
It's a chilling image. And eventually, the children wake up sequentially, with absolutely 0 memory of what happened.
It's as if time simply ceased to exist for them. But there is one anomaly, right?
Yes. A boy named Satoru Nakata never wakes up. He remains in a deep coma and is eventually evacuated to a military hospital.
So why introduce this military report from the 40s in a story about a runaway teen in the present?
Because it introduces a vital psychological mechanic for you, the listener. It is the concept of the dream circuit.
The dream circuit.
Right. It establishes a precedent where human consciousness, when subjected to an inexplicable trauma or force, can completely detach from the physical body.
So it travels to another space or dimension entirely.
Exactly. This isn't just magic, it's a profound metaphor for dissociation. When reality becomes too much to bear, the mind goes somewhere else entirely.
Nakata's mind vacated his body, leaving him a blank slate.
And this lays the groundwork for the bizarre metaphysical events Kafka is about to experience.
Because Kafka is the total opposite of a blank slate. He is overflowing with a reality he can't accept.
Right, so back in the present, Kafka arrives in Takamatsu and finds a sanctuary.
This private, beautifully run place called the Kimura Memorial Library, and this is where he meets Oshima.
Oshima is the librarian, and he quickly steps into the role of a mentor for Kafka.
He's brilliant, sharply dressed, incredibly perceptive, and he understands Kafka's internal storm immediately.
They actually have this incredible conversation about Franz Kafka's short story, In the Penal Colony.
Right. Our young Kafka explains that the horrifying, complex execution machine in that story isn't just a metaphor for punishment.
No, it's a purely mechanical explanation for the human condition.
It's a device for explaining the terrible, systemic situations we find ourselves in without having to talk directly about our pain.
And Oshima loves this interpretation because it leads perfectly into a profound lesson he imparts about fate, using Greek tragedy as the model.
He points out that in tragedies like Sophocles' Oedipus Rex, man doesn't choose his fate, fate chooses the man. But wait, if fate is unavoidable, if it just chooses you regardless of how hard you try to escape it, isn't that just incredibly depressing for the listener?
It sounds that way, yeah.
Like, why even try? If the sandstorm is just going to swallow me anyway, what is the point of going to the gym and packing the knife?
That is the most natural reaction to have. But Oshima counters this with a brilliant insight on the concept of irony.
Irony? How so?
He explains that in Greek tragedy, people are not drawn into their terrible fates by their flaws, their laziness, or their stupidity. They are drawn into tragedy by their virtues.
Right, really, by their virtues.
Yeah, by their courage, their honesty, their determination.
Wow. So Oedipus finds out he's the killer and ruins his own life precisely because he is so relentlessly honest and determined to find the truth for his people.
Precisely. The irony is that your virtues cause your downfall.
That's wild to think about.
Think about it in your own life. Have you ever noticed that the very trait that makes you successful, say your relentless perfectionism or your deep empathy, is exactly what eventually causes your burnout or your heartbreak?
That is painfully relatable, actually.
But Oshima argues this isn't purely depressing. This irony is actually what deepens a person.
Accepting that your strength will bring you pain is the entrance to salvation on a higher plane.
Exactly. It's how human beings mature. You don't beat the sandstorm, you let it deepen you.
And you can really see the toll of this irony in the people running this sanctuary, like the head of the library, Miss Saiki.
Oh, she is the physical embodiment of someone living in a tragedy. Her internal clock literally stopped decades ago.
Her backstory is just devastating. When she was young, she had this perfect childhood sweetheart. They were inseparable.
But during the chaotic student protests of the late 1960s, he was brutally beaten to death by mistake.
The students thought he was the leader of a rival faction, utterly pointless, random violence.
And because of that, Miss Psyche vanished for 25 years before finally returning to her hometown to run this library.
But before she disappeared, she wrote and recorded one hit pop song called Kafka on the Shore.
And the lyrics to that song are highly symbolic. They talk about a pendulum that moves the world, a sphinx, and a drowning girl looking for an entrance stone.
And those lyrics perfectly match a mysterious painting hanging in Kafka's room at the library.
Right. A painting of a boy sitting on a beach, looking up at a cloud shaped like a sphinx.
Now, this is where the story shifts from a kind of coming-of-age journey into incredibly dark psychological horror.
Because we finally find out exactly why Kafka ran away from home in the first place.
It wasn't just standard teenage rebellion. His father, who was a famous sculptor and who mysteriously survived a lightning strike that fundamentally changed him, placed a literal curse on his son.
A horrifying prophecy. He told Kafka that he would one day kill his father and sleep with his mother and his sister.
It is the classic Oedipal curse, the exact Greek tragedy Oshima and Kafka were just analyzing.
Kafka didn't flee Tokyo just to be independent. He fled to put physical distance between himself and his family to prevent the prophecy from coming true.
He is trying to outrun generational trauma, but distance doesn't solve anything.
No, it really doesn't.
While Kafka is hundreds of miles away in Shikoku, hiding in the library, his father is brutally murdered back in Tokyo.
And Kafka has an ironclad physical alibi. But he wakes up in the bushes near the sanctuary with blood all over his shirt and absolutely no memory of the night.
Which is terrifying. He tells Oshima he believes he actually committed the murder. He thinks he killed his father through the dream circuit.
He hypothesizes that his consciousness, driven by his intense repressed anger, detached from his body, traveled across the country through a dream and committed the act metaphorically.
Which somehow resulted in a physical death.
Exactly.
But wait, so he actually believes he committed murder through a dream? That doesn't make any sense.
I know, it sounds impossible.
If I have a terrible dream about hurting a coworker who wronged me, I don't wake up guilty of a crime. How does the text possibly justify holding him responsible for a metaphor?
In our waking reality, of course, you can't be held responsible. But this raises a profound point about the rules of the world Murakami has built.
Okay, how so?
In these source materials, metaphors have physical weight. As Kafka notes, metaphors eliminate the distance between people and realities.
So the text is taking a psychological truth, that our repressed desires and angers are real and have real-world consequences, and making it literal.
Exactly. If the mind can detach and track an invisible object like those kids did in 1944, then a deeply suppressed desire, or the weight of a father's curse, can manifest physically.
The blood on his shirt is the physical residue of his internal sandstorm.
It is. And the prophecy just continues to shatter his reality. Kafka ends up sleeping with Miss Saiki.
And he does this fully believing that she might actually be his mother, who abandoned him when he was 4 years old.
The lines between the past and present completely disintegrate here.
They really do. At night in his room, he is even visited by a 15-year-old living spirit of Miss Sakipi.
This is a crucial concept. That 15-year-old spirit is a literal projection of her frozen time.
Like, when trauma is that severe, a part of you stays frozen at the exact age your heart broke.
Right. The boundary between waking life, dreams, metaphors, and reality has completely collapsed for Kafka. The sandstorm has fully engulfed him.
So to hide from the police who are now investigating the father's death, Oshima sends Kafka to his family's remote mountain cabin.
He tells Kafka to listen to the wind and imagine he is a clam. Just shut out the world.
It's a retreat to the absolute edge of the world, and the forest surrounding this cabin is highly significant, isn't it?
It is. It's an old, abandoned training ground for the Imperial Army from World War II.
Kafka wanders deep into these woods and actually encounters 2 World War II soldiers.
But they aren't ghosts in the traditional sense. They tell him they exist as symbols.
They're guarding an entrance to another world, a world outside of time, where Miss Psyche's 15-year-old spirit resides.
And they strictly warn Kafka that if he steps through, he must never look back.
We have to unpack what it means that they are symbols. Why World War II soldiers?
Because they represent a forgotten frozen war. They are the ultimate embodiment of refusing to move on.
So they are guarding the temptation to completely dissociate.
Yes. Stepping into that world is the temptation to escape fate entirely. To step out of time and live in a frozen memory, completely free from the pain and responsibility of the real world.
Meanwhile, the sources reveal what happens to the older Nakata, the boy from the 1944 mushroom incident who never woke up and became a blank slate.
He is now an old man, and he has traveled all the way across Japan, drawn by an invisible force, to complete a mysterious mission.
He finds the library, and he burns thick files of Misaki's life writings on a riverbed.
Nakata is essentially the vessel that Kafka is not. Nakata's journey is about completing a cycle.
By burning those files, he destroys the physical weight of Misaki's past.
Exactly. He siphons off the accumulated pain and the frozen time she's been trapped in for decades. He acts as the ultimate release valve for her trauma.
And because her past has finally been burned away, Misaki is able to let go.
She passes away quietly, leaving her estate to the library, and she gifts that incredibly symbolic painting of Kafka on the shore to Kafka.
Her passing forces Kafka into his final defining decision. He is deep in the labyrinth of the woods, standing with those soldiers at the entrance to a timeless world.
He could easily step through. He could hide forever in that frozen space, away from prophecies, police, and pain.
But he makes a choice. He chooses to live.
He realizes that the edge of the world is a place for processing, not for living. He doesn't stay in the dream.
No, he hikes out of the woods, he picks up a phone, and he calls Sakura, the girl from the bus who he believes might actually be the sister from the torn photograph.
And he tells her he is taking the bullet train back to Tokyo. He is going to face the police, he's going to face his father's death, and he's going to finish school.
This is the realization of the final metaphor in the text, right?
Yeah, as Oshima implies, you have to go to the edge of the world to do what needs to be done. You have to face the darkest parts of your own subconscious, the most terrifying prophecies, and the heaviest generational curses.
But you cannot stay there. You must return to the waking world and carry that weight forward.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for us? Let's bring it all the way back to that sandstorm from the very beginning.
The boy named Crow told him. You walk into the storm cuts through your flesh like razor blades, and you bleed.
But when you walk out of the storm, you are not the same person who walked in. Kafka didn't outrun his fate. He stepped into the absolute center of it.
He faced his literal and metaphorical storms. He suffered the irony of his own actions, but he survived. And he walked out a different person.
He accepted the irony of his fate, which allowed him to mature and find salvation. He stopped trying to put on a raincoat against a flood and learned how to swim in it.
Which is such a powerful takeaway. But this leaves you, the listener, with a complex puzzle about the nature of our own inner lives and the things we suppress.
If the borders between our waking lives and our dreams are as porous as they are in this deep dive, to what extent are you responsible for the thoughts and actions you only dare to explore in your sleep? Thanks for listening to Book Talks. If you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for the next conversation.